Since 1775, generations of Americans have fought for our ideals and our principles. American warriors secured the freedoms to create the United States of America. They fought to end slavery. They joined with allies to win 2 world wars. They have responded with valor and honor whenever called. And they have liberated more people around the globe than any military in the history of the world. Our all-volunteer forces of guardsmen, soldiers, sailors, Marines, airmen, and reservists continue the mission begun at Lexington and Concord. Less than 1% of Americans serve in our armed forces. The least the rest of us can do is to pay attention and get engaged. This program is produced and broadcast for that purpose. It is presented live and worldwide at 1041thetruth.com. To engage, call 520-751-1041. The American Warrior is on the air.
This is General Order Number 11, issued by the headquarters of the Grand Army of the Republic in Washington, D.C. on May 5, 1868. The 30th of May, 1868, is designated for the purpose of strewing with flowers or otherwise decorating the graves of comrades who died in defense of their country during the late rebellion and whose bodies now lie in almost every city, village, and hamlet churchyard in the land. In this observance, no form of ceremony is prescribed, but posting comrades will in their own way arrange such fitting services and testimonials of respect as circumstances may permit. We are organized, comrades, as our regulations tell us, for the purpose, among other things, of preserving and strengthening those kind and fraternal feelings which have bound together the soldiers, sailors, and Marines who united to suppress the late rebellion. What can aid more to assure this result than by cherishing tenderly the memory of our heroic dead who made their breast a barricade between our country and its foe? Their soldiers' lives were the reveille of freedom to a race in chains, and their death of tattoo of rebellious tyranny in arms. We should guard their graves with sacred vigilance. All that the consecrated wealth and taste of the nation can add to their adornment and security is but a fitting tribute to the memory of her slain defenders. Let no wanton foot tread rudely on such hallowed grounds. Let pleasant paths invite the coming and going of reverent visitors and fond mourners. Let no vandalism of avarice, of neglect, no ravages of time, testify to the present or to the upcoming generations that we have forgotten, as a people, the cost of freedom and undivided republic. If other eyes grow dull and other hands slack, and other hearts cold in the solemn trust, ours shall keep it as well as long as the light and warmth of life remains in us. Let us then, at the time appointed, gather around their sacred remains and garland the passionless mounds above them with the choicest flowers of springtime. Let us raise above them the dear old flag they saved from dishonor. Let us in this solemn presence renew our pledges to aid and assist those whom they have left amongst us as sacred charges upon the nation's gratitude, the soldiers and sailors, widow and orphan. It is the purpose of the Commander-in-Chief to inaugurate this observance with the hope it will be kept up from year to year while a survivor of the war remains to honor the memory of his departed comrades. He earnestly desires the public press to call attention to this order and lend its friendly aid in bringing it to the notice of comrades in all parts of the country in time for simultaneous compliance therein. Department commanders will use every effort to make this order effective. By order of John A. Logan, Commander-in-Chief. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to American Warrior. This is your host, Ben Buehler-Garcia. That order established Memorial Day, or the basis of Memorial Day, issued all the way back on May 5th of 1868. And I tell you, folks, given the subject of this program, I was thinking a little bit about Memorial Day and how we have drifted so far, I think many of us in the nation, from the idea of that original day. Now, I'll tell you, and my guest will probably echo this, the last thing you want to do, if you take anything from this program, the last thing you want to do is wish a veteran a happy Memorial Day. That's not the right day to do that, so just don't do that. But let me share one other story with you before we get into today's program. This past spring, I was on a flight back from Dyess Air Force Base, after visiting Dyess Air Force Base, and seated in front of me just behind the first-class cabin was a young soldier, an Army soldier in his uniform, and across the aisle from him was a fellow wearing a Vietnam veteran ball cap. Now, I wasn't close enough to hear their conversation, but they talked over the course of the flight and were enjoying that flight. I can well imagine what they were talking about. But when we landed at Tucson International Airport, the pilot asked all the passengers to remain seated while the family of a fallen warrior exited the plane. All of us remained in place while a woman, grasping a folded American flag up to her chest, and her two young daughters, slowly made their way down the aisle. As they approached the first-class cabin, both that Vietnam veteran and that young soldier stood up as best they could on an airplane and rendered a salute. It wasn't until the next day that I learned that that person was one of our own. On April 6, 2013, in Afghanistan, Air Force Pararescue Chief Master Sergeant Nick McCaskill made the ultimate sacrifice, leaving behind a wife and 2 daughters. Along with other community representatives and civilians, I attended his memorial service at Davis Mountain Air Force Base, and at the end of the service, Sergeant McCaskill's comrades began a slow procession up the center aisle, and each one, with force, pounded their crest into the memorial board there and rendered a final salute to Sergeant McCaskill. After about 5 minutes of this, the Master of Ceremonies went back to the microphone and told us, hey, listen, this is the end of the formal ceremony. You can go ahead and leave. But not a single person stirred. For almost 45 minutes, everybody stayed in place until that procession was over, and every last one of his comrades pounded their crest into the board. When it was done, it was not just PJ crests. There were Army crests. There was a Navy SEAL trident, and even a shield from the Tucson Fire Department. Not everyone has forgotten about our fallen comrades. Well, not my comrades, I never served, but those who've served our country. And today we're joined by 2 people who have really created a foundation or involved in a foundation that was established specifically to remember the families of those fallen warriors. And we're joined today, kind of last minute, in the studio by the I told you I was nervous. That Others May Live Executive Director James Yogi McElhaney, correct?
That's correct.
Lieutenant Colonel, retired, United States Air Force, and the Deputy Executive Director for Operations, Laura Lerdahl, both with the That Others May Live Foundation. Welcome to American Warrior.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That was a longer introduction than usual. But I can see both of you are going to be so quiet. I guess, do I need to tell more stories? But
We'll be telling stories, too.
Okay.
We'll help you out.
I think it's appropriate. You and, Yogi, you and I met in the middle of the Arizona desert on Friday while we were observing the Angel Thunder exercises. And tell us, Angel Thunder, for folks that aren't familiar with that, what is that's? I think it's the largest pararescue exercise.
Well, actually, it is the largest personnel recovery exercise in the world, and it encompasses not only the Air Force personnel recovery triad, which is the Guardian Angel, consisting of pararescue, SERI, and combat rescue officers, HH-60s and all of their air crew, and HC-130s and all of their air crew, but it also brings in interagency from other parts of the government as well as all the other branches of the service together for 2 weeks to exercise together and get better at home, so that when we have to do this in harm's way, we can work together.
Now, when I was riding up on the bus with some of the other honorary commanders to view the exercise, we had some folks from Colombia. There was a Swede on the bus. What do you know? How many? Several nations, partner nations, take part of this, right?
They do. I don't know the exact number this year. We've had up to 10 partner nations in past years. I've been involved in Angel Thunder since 2005. First as a participant on active duty, and of course now with the foundation. But yes, many different countries. A lot of from Southcom, since AF South and 12th Air Force are here. We bring a lot of those partners in, as well as internationals from Europe and around the world.
And what is this has been going on for how long, to the best of your knowledge?
I believe it started in 2002 or 2003. I don't remember. It started very small as an exercise only for the 563rd Rescue Group here at Davis Monthan, and it just grew from that to what it is today. Now,
there was a very, we'll get into this when we come back after the break, but there was a very real-life rescue that took place that was, I wouldn't say it was tied to Angel Thunder, but it was certainly lucky, I guess, maybe for the folks that ended up getting rescued, that there was folks from Angel Thunder and the resources here that were able to go out and rescue those folks. And we can talk a little bit about that after the break. But tell me, as far as what we witnessed there, when we were there, I think it was a high-value hostage. These guys raided a camp and rescued the hostage and took him out of there. Is that... what kind of scenarios were we witnessing up there?
Well, what we had going on there was the last day of the exercise and the culmination part of the exercise, and they had 6 isolated personnel, or friendlies that we don't know where are, but we know they're in harm's way. And what we witnessed was the recovery of those isolated personnel in that village by the HH-60s and the Guardian Angel teams.
Okay. Folks, this is your host, Ben Buehler-Garcia. Great show coming up. Stay tuned. Give us a call if you'd like, 751-1041. We're live in the studio with the That Others May Live Executive Director, James McElhaney, Hellsign Yogi, Lieutenant Colonel retired, as well as the Executive Director, or Deputy Executive Director for Operations, Laura Lerdahl. Great show coming up. Stay tuned, folks. We'll be right back.
Those who expect to reap the blessings of freedom must, like men, undergo the fatigue of supporting it. Now, back to the American Warrior.
We're back, folks. This is your host, Ben Buehler-Garcia. We're live in the studio for American Warrior today. If you have a question or comment, by all means, feel free to give us a call, 751-1041. We're joined today by Yogi McElhaney, who is the Executive Director of the That Others May Live Foundation, as well as Deputy Executive Director for Operations, Laura Lerdahl. And Yogi or Laura, tell us a little bit about, let's start off with the name of the foundation, the phrase That Others May Live. That is, that's got a very special meaning and a very special background in the rescue community. So tell us a little bit about that to begin with.
Okay, it sure does. It's actually taken from part of the motto that comprises rescue and what rescue personnel believe in down to their core. Part of it is these things we do that others may live. Mm-hmm. And so when we adopted that namesake, it's specific to Air Force rescue personnel and their families, which is directly what our mission is.
Now, Laura, you may know more about this than Yogi does because he doesn't have much experience in this line of work. But I've had we had the two pilots on that flew the chopper that pulled out Marcus Luttrell. We've had PJs on the show before, and it's just I mean, everybody I talk to in the military, I mean, God bless them because they're so humble. But these young men, I mean, you know, I don't know, 30 decorations for valor, something crazy like that. It's just kind of like, it's my job.
It's really incredible. They're trained and ready to go in harm's way, no matter what, no matter the circumstances. They're trained in hostile conditions to combat hostile conditions. They can go in high-angle rescue on mountains. They're trained to go in the water, long ways out to sea, in very cold oceans. Any scenario, they're ready to go. And basically, if it's a really bad day for somebody, it's a good day for them because they get to put all their training to work and work as a team and save somebody's life and get them home to their families.
Now, we didn't trade notes before the show, but nope. That perfect entree into just recently here, as you know, we're talking in the first segment about Angel Thunder, the exercise. But on May 2nd, there was a ship, a Chinese ship, if I'm not mistaken, had a fire and explosion on board, and the ship sunk, and some of them were recovered by a Venezuelan fishing boat 1,100 nautical miles off the coast of Mexico. And the folks that got the call were the people that were here participating in Angel Thunder. They were all geared up, ready to go anyway.
Indeed.
So they went out, and it's just interesting from the article, the quote here, Colonel Sean Choquette said, we're prepared to rescue anyone, anytime, anywhere when tasked by the Air Force. And the Staff Sergeant, Chris Peters, who actually jumped in to do this rescue, he said, at first glance, before I parachuted down into the Pacific Ocean, my only thought was that others may live. I mean, what a great testament. Yeah.
I know. So how can you not want to give back to that?
Wonderful, wonderful stuff. So now your connection to this is?
I'm a proud spouse of a PJ, retired PJ.
Wonderful.
And
wonderful.
Really, he's my inspiration for being part of this organization.
Now, tell us a little bit about the background of the foundation itself, why it was created specifically to the PJ community.
Well, if you'll back up to 1997 and 1998, we had a couple of tragedies at Nellis Air Force Base, and two different people started two separate funds to help out those children of those fallen airmen. One of those was a pilot who was killed in Kuwait, and another were 13 lives that were lost during a mid-air collision in a training accident in Nellis Ranges. So those two individuals started funds to assist those families and try to send their children to college. And then at some point in 2002, they decided to combine their efforts, go for the nonprofit status, and now we've backed that up. So anybody doing the Air Force rescue mission, whether that be pararescuemen, HH-60, HC-130, or any discipline doing the Air Force rescue mission, we are striving to send their children to college, give them a full education, give them a head start on life. So right now I think we have 33, 34. What's the number, Laura?
The number of beneficiaries, children, but 35.
35. Some of those have finished, and many of them are coming up to college age as we speak. We'll have at least 3 in college in the next couple of years.
Yeah, go ahead, Laura.
Well, if I may add, because this is a very young man's career field, it's very demanding and young. Yeah. I shouldn't say young man's, but young persons. Somebody that's extremely fit. The families are also very young.
Sure.
So what we do is we raise money for the future for those children, and the sad fact is that we just have to be prepared for the future.
Well, and, Yogi made a good point that really it's not just in the line of duty does not always mean, the danger isn't just when you're confronting the enemy. This accident at Nellis that took the lives, that was one of the epic events that started this foundation. I mean, this is a dangerous business even when no one is shooting at you. It
is, and we like to, we pride ourselves in training the way we fight. So if you train the way you fight, you got to train hard. And if you train hard, there's bad things happen. There's consequences sometimes. Even as recently as January, we lost a helicopter over in England on a training mission. Lost 4 airmen, and we picked up another 8 beneficiaries simply out of that tragedy alone.
I tell you, up there observing the Angel Thunder exercise, we flew in helicopters back when I was a firefighter in the Forest Service, but it was all green country. And on Friday, I experienced for the very first time a brownout. And I tell you, it's one thing to hear about it or even see it on film, but standing there when that helicopter came down the desert and literally you could not see a darn thing. And this is a heavy piece of equipment with lots of moving parts, and I just can't imagine doing that while people are shooting at you. It seemed very real to me. I'll tell you, I was 100 yards away, and it seemed darn real to me.
It was so well orchestrated. I thought, not to diminish anything, but I have a background in ballet and the choreography of putting a whole, everything together, and it looked really, really good from the ground where we were. I think I still have dirt in my ears, but.
Well, yes.
And that was just a couple hours out there.
Just a wee bit dusty, just a wee bit. Now, tell us more. You've got 3 specific programs that I'm aware of that you offer: the Beneficiary Assistance Program, the Warfighter Liaison Program, and then the Community Ambassador Program. Tell us a little bit. We got about 5 minutes to the break. If you can, just sort of describe each of those programs for our listeners.
Certainly. The Foundation's roots started for post-secondary scholarship assistance for children left behind, and that was since 2002. And then in 2010, we became aware of a need that was not fulfilled for immediate tragedy assistance, and we started filling that need, basically getting loved ones that were not necessarily listed as the beneficiary when someone passes away, but getting them in place for funerals. Because in fact, one of the couples was engaged, and wedding invitations had already gone out.
Oh my gosh!
And so we assisted getting her in place for her fiance's funeral. The other thing that we do is we're becoming more aware of a need for warfighter appreciation and wounded rescue angel support. And what we're doing is providing a venue for those wounded rescue personnel to come together long after they've been told that their wounds are quote-unquote healed, because those wounds go very deep. We believe it's important to bring them together to continue the healing process.
Okay. And now, a little bit coming back to you, Yogi. I described in the beginning the ceremony, Sergeant McCaskill's ceremony, the tradition of the PJs, pounding the crest into the board. I'd seen that. I'd seen the SEALs do that in movies, but I'd never actually witnessed it before. I assume that's a pretty common theme.
Yeah, it is. Unfortunately, I'm not a PJ myself. I'm a retired pilot, so I cannot speak to exactly where that tradition began. But I can tell you that that is a very long tradition. I've seen it done, unfortunately, too many times, and it's really kind of become pervasive throughout the community, where we, even if you aren't a PJ, those PJs, they know we all do the same thing, and they will still go pound those flashes into pilots and flight engineers and gunners' caskets and memorials, just because, again, we're all the same team. We're all out there to do one thing, and that's to save lives.
Now, the foundation is headquartered in Las Vegas, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, but you spent some time here at Davis-Monthan
I did. I was the 55th Rescue Squadron Commander from 2007 until 2009. And so I have a love for Davis Monthan, a love for DM, as well as this mission. But we are located in Las Vegas. That's where we are a Nevada 501c3, but we are national and international with our beneficiaries living in England, Japan, and, of course, anywhere deployed.
Now, I think one of the challenges when you begin a nonprofit like this, particularly when you consolidate from a couple of efforts the way your group was born, there's a challenge sometimes of getting the word out to others, particularly nationally. But given how tight-knit the rescue community is, have you found that that's not been quite as much of a challenge?
Well, at first it was a challenge, and to this day when I hear people say, I had no idea you exist, it kind of sends a dagger in my heart. But it also tells me that we still have work to do. But we're only as good as the amazing volunteers we have, and they make us great because they're all over the world willing to help us spread the word.
Now, and folks, if you're interested, their website is www.othersmaylive.org. Folks can go there and find out about upcoming events, how they can donate, how they can volunteer, basically how those of us who never served but are grateful to those who do can support, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And that's in any community? Are your events focused just in where the rescue squadrons are, or not necessarily?
Not necessarily. We tend to have a lot of events all over the world, big and small. And by event, it could be something as simple as a potluck, a chili cook-off in your office. It could be a snack bar proceeds in your office, or it could be a cornhole tournament. We had one of those in Portugal last year. I didn't get to go to that, though.
Darn.
But I know.
Yeah, well, you know.
I'm pretty good at that.
Las Vegas, Portugal, kind of maybe sort of the same thing, no?
Another thing that's become popular, and I want to give a big thank you back to our community, is when we've had several people, again, a young community, people getting married, and in lieu of gifts, they give out our website, and we get a lot of donations in lieu of gifts to weddings, and we're really thankful for that, and congratulations to all those newlyweds.
Hey, folks, this is your host, Ben Buehler-Garcia. We're live on American Warrior talking about the That Others May Live Foundation and Pararescue, and just all those folks and the families of those people that have given the ultimate sacrifice. If you have a question or comment, feel free to give us a call. And, hey, listen, while you're at it, if you have access to the base, on June 13th, the Mirage Co-Located Club has got a Wingman comedy show featuring Damon Williams. It's only, let's see, $8, I'm sorry, for enlisted, $15 for officers. Really good time. Go out there and support the Mirage Club. This is your host, Ben Buehler-Garcia. We'll be right back.
Who expect to reap the blessings of freedom must, like men, undergo the fatigue of supporting it. Now, back to the American Warrior on 104.1 The Truth.
And we're back, folks. This is your host, Ben Buehler-Garcia, here on American Warrior. Listen, if you have a question or comment, give us a call, 751-1041. Our guests are both live here in the studio, and I thought they had joined us from Las Vegas, but now I learned that one's joined us from as far east as, Atlanta?
Atlanta, yes.
And that's in the United States?
That is in the United States.
Okay.
It is the only place you actually have to go to Atlanta to get any place else in the United States if you're flying Delta.
Boy, don't I know that feeling. And Laura, you are from, or you make your home in?
Originally, I'm from Albuquerque, but my current home is in North Sacramento.
And that leads to kind of an interesting thing about your foundation, in that the foundation is headquartered in Las Vegas, but both of you operate out of your homes. But the foundation itself is very efficient. When folks give to this foundation, a significant amount of it actually going to support these families. And tell us a little bit more about that, because that's something when folks are looking at nonprofits, I encourage them to say, okay, if you're donating $1.70 of it is going to pay staff, maybe not where you want to put your money necessarily. Yes, sir.
That's the administrative fundraising ratio is very important to nonprofit, and ours is extremely good. So over 88% of every dollar raised goes directly to the mission, and that's pretty efficient.
That's very efficient.
We take great pride in that.
When you talk about one of your main missions is to provide scholarship, college support for the young people, do you know on an annual basis or so far of the beneficiaries you have, what is that approximate total dollar amount that you've?
Well, last year we gave out over $125,000. in beneficiary support, and that wasn't just scholarships. It was immediate tragedy assistance. It was giving back to the warfighter appreciation, the Wounded Rescue Angel support program. So in giving back to our mission, that's how much we gave out last year.
Wonderful. Good stuff. Now, we talked about at the beginning of the program about Memorial Day and just how important it is that people don't forget. If you've been in a cave and you haven't been paying attention, Tucson actually lost another one of our own just last week. Last Tuesday, Command Sergeant Major Martin Barreras, 49, died in San Antonio from wounds he received in the Herat province, Afghanistan. So, folks, please don't forget. And however you choose to support, if you're a civilian like me, I really hope you'll get engaged. Take a look at that Others May Live Foundation or any other organization here in Tucson. Yogi, coming back to you, we're talking a little bit about this is a dangerous business, and you corrected me. So, okay, any PJs listening out there, Yogi did not claim to be a PJ. He says he's not okay. But you acted as if you and your entire career in the Air Force, you never went on a mission. You were a pilot. You flew the aircraft that inserted and retrieved PJs. Absolutely, and that's kind of what we're trying to tell people and remind them that it does take this entire team. None of us could do it on our own. The pararescue is a great capability. Nobody else in the military has that capability, but without the ability to get them where they need to be at the right time at the right place, then they can't do their job. Likewise goes for the HC-130, the other part of our triad. If you go back to that mission you were talking about earlier off of the coast with the Chinese sailors, the pararescue men, the Guardian Angels, went on the HC-130. They parachuted in for time and speed. They wanted to get to the patient quickly to try to have the best opportunity to save his life. And if they had done that on a helicopter, it would have just taken a whole lot longer. So they got there, they parachuted in, they took care of the patient, then the helicopters came, recovered those patients and pararescue men, took them back to a transload location where they put them on the 130 to get them quickly to a higher level of care. So you're absolutely right. It takes the entire team to do this mission, and the U.S. Air Force is the only service that puts all three of those elements together and sends it into harm's way, or in this case, in a civilian rescue, that we don't have to go looking for those elements. We already have them in one place. And it's really important for the listeners to recognize that these are young men who, not just in times of war. I mean, they do. I know that the groups here at Davis-Monthan have performed a number of important civilian missions. I know in looking at Mr. McCaskill's resume, he was deployed, I think, for Hurricane Katrina and all the saves it did. So this is really, of the military groups, this is a group that stands up and is really not just doing combat operations, but really is there for civilian rescues as well. That's absolutely right, and Hurricane Katrina is a perfect example. In the 2 weeks following the Katrina disaster, just the U.S. Air Force alone saved over 4,700 American lives in the Mississippi Louisiana Gulf Coast. Repeat that number, please. People need to hear that. Over 4,700 American lives saved in 2 weeks by just the Air Force. That's not counting what the Army, the Navy, the Coast Guard did. Just the Air Force. I had the opportunity to go out and visit and correct me if I'm wrong, but the 129th at Moffett. That's right. And I was there for a kind of a familiarization. Sorry, it's not my first language tour. I was there to see what they do. Okay. And they had arranged to take me out and kind of fly me around the bay and kind of, And when I got there, the commander was very apologetic. He says, "Look, we're not going to be able to do that. We're gearing up to deploy to Rita." And I was saying, this is even better. I actually get to see you guys do what you do, and watching the operation, even on that side of it, loading the helicopters onto the aircraft, all the stuff that was taking place. I got to tell you, as a business person, the thing I enjoyed the most about that visit was the colonel got everybody together for an update briefing on where everything was, where the status was. That meeting took 12 minutes. As a business person, I'm thinking, oh, Lord, I wish I could do, I've been in too many meetings. There were 10-minute meetings that lasted an hour, and, how wonderful that was just to see it happen in 12 minutes. Right, a lot of planning went into that, and a lot of lessons learned came out of Katrina, having just done that just a few months earlier. Obviously, 2005 was a very bad hurricane season, and after Katrina, we went to Rita, and we spun up to go to 2 other hurricanes, which thankfully we were not needed at. Even though when I was a commander here for 2 years, just in the Tucson area, we saved an additional 10 lives, local civilian rescues. And what happens is when the local authorities don't have the ability, it's too dark, it's too remote, it's too high, something is where they cannot provide it with their
indigenous equipment, then they call the Air Force Rescue Coordination Center, and then it's tasked out to the local rescue squadrons. And as I said, in 2 years alone when I was here, we saved 10 lives in the local southern Arizona area.
I was going to mention that the folks at Moffett, that's my hood, out in the West Coast.
Did she just say hood?
I did.
Okay, she did.
They just celebrated, I should say it's a really great number. They had celebrated their over 1,000th save.
Wow.
Recently, and that included the family on the Rebel Heart, the infant that was sick to add it.
Oh, sure.
The family
that was one of their missions?
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Mm-hmm. Wonderful.
Yes.
Now, Yogi, what constitutes a save? Well, in baseball, I know what a save is.
Right. And as far as the Air Force is concerned, if you save life, limb, or eyesight, we call that a save. So in most cases, in this case, we're talking about lives most of the time, but if, for example, if someone would have lost a limb, have we not gotten them to a higher level of care, or would they have lost eyesight if we had not gotten them to a higher level of care? That is what we consider a save.
Now, having been here, we're talking a little bit about the Angel Thunder exercise, which was taking place the last 2 weeks, if I'm not mistaken, headquartered out of Davis-Monthan. But kind of I happened to pay a visit up to Florence, but there was things going up north, up in Flagstaff, all over the state, correct?
That is correct, all over the state and all over the Southwest. There were forces at Flagstaff for the whole 2 weeks. In fact, the ones you saw at Florence had flown out of Flagstaff. That's where they came from. In addition to that, there was a maritime operation going on with the Navy and the Air Force and other components operating out of NAS North Island in San Diego.
You know, one of the things I noticed that was very interesting to me as a civilian on Friday was these two personnel came out of the desert, dirty, full equipment, rifles, everything, and they looked, the beard, the sunglasses, they looked just like ours until they got a little bit closer. I noticed they were carrying a different weapon, and they were wearing the Swedish flag. Mm-hmm. But I thought how interesting it was that when you talk about this tight-knit community, it's not just in our forces, but internationally, I would guess, is still a very tight-knit community.
It really is, and if you look at the saves that the U.S. Air Force has performed, particularly in Afghanistan, a lot of internationals because it's a big international force over there with ISAF. So we try to train together at home so that when we get into theater and deployed, we can operate together.
Now, Yogi, you're retired now, so you're maybe not beholden to some of the rules of when you're active duty. Can you tell us, are we still the best in the world at this?
Oh, without a doubt.
Yeah, absolutely.
I got no question.
Sorry.
In her hood, yes, they are, but yeah.
Absolutely. Well, you saw it yesterday or last week up in Florence. We're absolutely the best in the world, and the reason we are is because we train as hard as we do, and we bring all those elements together. Nobody else does that.
Great. Hey, folks, we're going to be here for one more segment. A great show goes fast. If you have a question or a comment, give us a call, 751-1041. If you missed past shows of American Warrior or Daily Mail, you can download the podcast at www.1041kqth.com. This is your host, Ben Buehler-Garcia. We'll be right back.
My daddy served in the army. We lost his right eye, but he flew a flag out in our yard. Till the day that he died, he wanted my mother, my brother, my sister, and me to grow up and live happy in the land of the free.
If you want to discuss those who serve the red, white, and blue, dial 520-751-1041. If you want to support them, start with WoundedWarriorProject.org. Now, back to the American Warrior on 104.1 The Truth.
And we lit up your world like the 4th of July.
It is radio, folks. Sometimes, I wish you're killing me over here.
Oh, my God, you're killing me small.
It's a business, all right? Okay, cut us some slack. Yogi, let me go back, start over. This is your host, Ben Buehler-Garcia, here on American Warrior. We're joined today talking about the That Others May Live Foundation and just the dangerous business that is pararescue. Yogi, two things. One is, I've been an active supporting the military for all my adult life, 30 years. But I saw a special on TV. Each segment talked about special forces, and one was about the PJs and pararescue, the Air Force particularly, and I had no idea. But, it's sort of like one of the more unknown special forces of our special forces. Is that an accurate assessment in your mind, or?
I would say that's absolutely accurate. And if you look at the pararescue career field in particular, it's also split. So what you were probably seeing was the special forces side of that. We have pararescuemen assigned to special tactics squadrons that are in Air Force Special Operations Command. And we also have pararescuemen assigned to rescue squadrons, which is an Air Combat Command. And if you look at their missions are very, very similar. They just do it with different people, if you will. And if we're on the special operations side, they're working with those warriors and in those missions. And on our side, our primary mission is to bring home Americans and allies.
Now, it's important, again, for civilians listening, and particularly given this radio, it helps to paint a picture for folks about real life stories. And you were talking when we were on the break a little bit about a rescue that you participated in the Pacific. Tell us about that.
Oh, sure. That was actually my first save, and I guess your first save is almost always your most memorable save. But it was one of those days out in the Northern Pacific. I was in Okinawa, Japan, and windy, low ceilings, a lot of high seas, and a sailor on a U.S. merchant marine ship was washed, hit by a wave, broke his leg, compound fracture, had a 2-day sail back to get to the Navy base on the mainland, and they called us up and asked us to come out and bring him back to a higher level of care on Okinawa. So my very first save, I was on a training mission, got diverted, came back, picked up PJs, picked up a flight surgeon because of the compound fracture, went out and landed on the pitching and rolling deck of the USS Tippecanoe. Some other stories happened while we were on decks, but we don't have time for that right now. But in the long story short, the medical element packaged the patient, took care of him, got him back to Okinawa, to Leicester Naval Hospital, and he recovered, full recovery. It was a save because we saved his leg by doing that.
Now, on the ride up to Florence the other day, I was seated next to, I guess, a gunner. I don't know if that's the right term for what he did. Flight engineer?
Well, actually, we used to have flight engineers and gunners, and they've combined their career field now, and honestly, I don't remember what the new acronym is. But, either one of those. Let's just say either one's correct. Let's
put it this way. As a taxpayer, I was trying to convince him to let me fire the weapon, and that clearly wasn't about to happen. But he spent most of the trip regaling us about, even in the best conditions, all the things that can go wrong. He loved telling us how the rotor blades were barely attached. But I guess that point in your story, though, I mean, you're in a moving aircraft trying to land on a moving deck, high winds, water, pitching, rolling. It's a dangerous business.
It is, and that's, again, why we train the way we do, because we know that probably if something's gone wrong for somebody else, it's probably going to be potentially a bad situation for us, too. One of the joking things that we like to say is we fly where others have failed.
Interesting. Very, very good comment.
The training for pararescue in particular is 2 years. It's a 2-year pipeline, and they put them through all kinds of wretched situations that I sure wouldn't want to be in, water harassment training, that kind of thing, where they separate you from your mask and snorkel and make you hold your breath a really long time to recover it and then continue with the mission. But speaking to that, one of the missions my husband was on when he was stationed in Iceland, they left the base and it was a beautiful day, but by the time they had refueled twice to get out to the boat where their patient was, the flight engineer looks at my husband when he's about to be hoisted onto this slippery steel deck, and he said, 50-knot winds. And my husband looked at him like, you really didn't need to tell me that.
That's in the story when we had the pilots on the Marcus Luttrell, the lone survivor mission. One of the elements of that story really was apparently as they're coming down through the brownout, and when they landed and everything settled, the pilot actually saw how close his rotor blades had been to the edge, and he kind of chided his crew member, said, why didn't you warn me? And the crew member said, you really didn't need to know that at that point in time. I figured it was going to be what it was going to be.
Right, and if I can back up for a minute, I just got a text from an listener, actually, who said special mission aviator is the new term for our flight engineer and gunner combined career field. So thank you, Chief Master Sergeant Price.
Thank you, Chief Master Sergeant Price. You could have called us at 751-1041, but I guess a text, that new technology, the interweb, it still works. Now, speaking of the interweb, if you would like to learn more or support this great organization, it's thatothersmaylive.org. And coming back, what other things do you have any events coming up in this part of the country anytime soon that you'd like to tell our listeners about?
Well, particularly in Tucson, we've had several events so far this year. We've had a barrel race. We've had golf tournaments.
Now, let me stop you right there. Because where I'm from, barrel race means something in particular with horses.
Yes.
In your community, is that something different that we need to know about? Or
No, they're not training in that as well.
Oh, okay. All right,
This was a great young woman that approached us, Emily. I give her first name. I don't want to call her out on radio without her knowing. But she came to us. She found us on the internet and asked us how she could support us. And that was something that she does very well. And she's organized 3 for us in 3 years in a row. And so that's one of the fundraisers we have out here. And I know that they're trying to generate a golf tournament at some point this year. But the best way to keep in touch with us is to like us on Facebook. And we post all our events on our webpage.
And on Facebook, it is under...
That Others May Live Foundation.
Okay,
so the link to that's on our website. Everything's on our website.
Great. Okay, now what? You're in one of the line of work, or the foundation is in a line of work where I would think you would love to be out of business. You would love for there never to be a need for this. But given the world situation, I don't see that happening. What? I mean, it's hard to say, but as we're looking towards the future, what sorts of things do you see as other needs? Is there any consideration to adding more programs to the 3 you already offer now? Or
Well, that's a great question. And one of the things that we always do is we try to look to the community and ask them what it is the community needs, and we try to meet that need. And that's why we have our immediate tragedy assistance program now. Did not have it in 2010. Identified that need, codified the process, and now we have that. So. We have a very active board of directors, and we also have what we call our senior advisory council. Mm-hmm. And those guys are oftentimes comprised up of military members who do what we do and do the community that we support. And we could look to them and ask, what do you think the community needs that we aren't providing? And we flex and we shape ourselves to what is needed.
But just to emphasize, one does not have to be prior military to support you.
Not at all. In fact,
it could be a barrel racer.
Right. And what I was going to add to that, you had asked a question earlier about our ambassador program, and that's basically our lead volunteer in a particular area. And what we rely on them to do is help us identify opportunities for an event that might be successful in their area and help us get the word out in that area. And we have ambassadors all over the country.
And who is your ambassador here in Tucson? Do you want to just give her a shout out?
Heidi Meisterling and Jason House.
There you go.
Yay.
You've been recognized an American Warrior, Heidi.
Woo-hoo.
So stop calling me. Yogi, though, you mentioned some other programs that you've established. You're recognizing now the Squadron of the Year, and tell us a little more about that.
Absolutely. Last year we handed out the first Rescue Squadron of the Year award, and what we want to do is we just want to recognize the great work that all of our airmen are doing out there. And so we've handed our second award out. The first one went to the 211th Rescue Squadron out of Alaska Air National Guard, and last year the 66th Rescue Squadron up from Nellis, which is actually a part of the 563rd Rescue Group here at Davis-Monthan. So sort of a local unit won that, being part of the group here. And we hand that out in the spring based on the achievements of that squadron from the previous year. And I'll be honest, it is a very, very difficult job to pick a winner because we had 12 packages this year, and they were so good. Every one of them, the discriminators were almost impossible to pick a number one.
I agree. Yeah, I mean, I was on the executive committee to judge those packages, and every one of them is very well deserved. And, they're doing great things, not just the mission, but they're also giving back to their community, not just to our organization, but to their kids' schools. It's great. They're doing it all.
I tell you, we're right at the end, but Rescue can do anything. We have a caller. Mark has a question. Mark, we've only got just about a minute.
Yeah,
what is your question?
I'm just going to make a quick comment here because I was originally an H-3 pilot here, then flew 141s and did some infrared technical development. But I was on one of the original H-53 night recovery system birds where they were still testing them, and I wanted to say that I'm happy to hear that the technology is progressing. And hopefully you guys are retaining the heritage of skills from the past, and it's just getting better and better. And it's a great to hear things about your mission, and I'm proud to see that you guys are hopefully just the best there is in the world.
Mark, thanks for your call.
All right, see you.
And we fell silent. What a great! I guess there's nothing to say about that, huh?
That's great. Yeah, absolutely. I was just going to say thank you, Mark, for being one of those pioneers, and absolutely the tradition continues and that heritage lives, and we're proud of everyone that does it.
Well, thank you both for being here. I mean, what a fortunate accident to run into up there again in the middle of the Arizona desert. Wanted to just emphasize again, folks, if you'd like to support this foundation and what they do, the website is thatothersmaylive.org. You can also find them on Facebook, That Others May Live, right after you or before American Warrior Daily Mail on Facebook, too. Listen, thank you so much for being here. What a great opportunity.
Our pleasure.
Thanks for having us.
Hey, listen, folks, next week, you're not going to want to miss this. There's a gentleman by the name of John Quinn. John spent 20 years in the Navy, was one of the founding members of SEAL Team 3, numerous military decorations, but the thing about John is he did all of this while suffering from cerebral palsy. He kept this a secret. Just a tremendous tale of strength, of motivation. Tune in next week at noon on American Warrior right here on 104.1 KQTH. This has been your host, Ben Buehler-Garcia. Stick around. We've got a great program of Daily Mail coming right up.